I sat in the car, waiting for some sign that would force me to either start the engine or abandon the idea of going home altogether. The parking lot lights cast yellow cones across the windshield, but inside my sedan, everything felt cold. My hands gripped the wheel. My phone lay on the passenger seat. I hadn't touched it in over an hour. I just waited. Maybe I was waiting for courage. Maybe I was waiting for clarity. Maybe for some final push that would make the next few hours less painful. Eventually, I stepped out into the sharp air. The sky was dark. No stars, just the cloudy blur from the nearby city lights. My eyes settled on the silhouette of a low concrete wall near the entrance of the building, a place that felt lifeless and abandoned. Without fully understanding why, I walked right up to it and drove my fist into the cold cement. My knuckles exploded with pain. Something about that jolt snapped me awake, like I needed the raw sting to remember I was still alive. Blood oozed from the scraped skin, but I welcomed the sensation. I was thinking, if I can't cry properly, at least I can bleed. At least I can feel something. Because for the last few months, everything inside me had grown numb, except for one sharp corner of my mind that repeated the same question. How do I destroy what little trust remains? How do I kill it in 3 precise steps? I slumped against the wall, slid down onto the curb, and pressed my trembling hand against the front pocket of my jacket. I could still hear Sarah's laugh in my head, warm and bright as it used to be. Now it felt like a ghost's echo. Next to that memory, the image of him, Anthony, kept flickering. His confident grin, his casual stance, that look of satisfaction I'd witnessed all too clearly. I wanted to punch that smug face just as hard as I had punched the wall. But then again, what would that change? Some acts of betrayal are bigger than violence. They spread like a poison you can't fight with fists. I climbed back into the driver's seat, started the engine, and forced myself to head home. The entire drive, my mind replayed earlier events, me in the hallway, her with him behind that closed door. Just a thin barrier between me and the collapse of my marriage. Everything started a couple of weeks ago, though the seeds were planted long before. I was getting suspicious. The late-night text messages, the quiet phone calls in the next room, the sudden migraines that demanded she go for a drive to clear her head. I let it simmer, let the questions build up inside. Maybe I was in denial. Maybe I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But the truth weighed on me, pressing down, refusing to be ignored. That evening, I decided to follow her. I'd grown tired of uncertain speculation. I watched her get into her car after dinner, telling me she had to pick up some design materials from her friend's apartment. Our 9-year-old son was asleep upstairs, so I said nothing, just nodded, pretended everything was normal. She left, and I left right after, careful to keep my headlights distant. She drove for 20 minutes. We ended up at a polished high-rise condo building on the nicer side of town. I parked behind a van, got out, and found a vantage point near the security door. She rang a buzzer. A few moments later, he opened it. Tall, broad shoulders, that short, perfectly styled hair. I recognized him from the pictures I once saw on Sarah's phone, though she claimed he was just a colleague. They didn't notice me, not with their arms wrapping around each other in the doorway. Her head tilted back. His mouth found her neck. I felt my chest tighten so hard I thought my ribs would crack. My breath caught in my throat. Before that second, everything was suspicious but abstract. Now it was real, inescapable. She was kissing him, or he was kissing her, or they were devouring each other. I don't even know which. The jolt of realization rattled my nerves so thoroughly that the rest of the world evaporated. Street noises, passing cars, the night breeze, nothing remained except that scene. He pulled her inside, and the door swung shut. My mind screamed at me to run in there, to confront them. I even took a step forward, but the door locked automatically, and I stopped, paralyzed by my own confusion. My heart hammered in my ears. Something in me whispered, Asterisk wait. If you go up there now, what do you do next? Asterisk I didn't have the answer, so I stood outside, the wind chilling my cheeks. It felt like hours. Sometimes I paced in circles. Sometimes I stared at the door. My anger rose and fell in waves, but a deeper numbness was creeping in beneath it, telling me that everything was about to change, telling me that part of me had died. And I remember thinking, asterisk, if I truly want to bury trust forever, I need to see this through to the end. Asterisk, so I waited. Eventually, the front door clicked open again. Through the tinted glass, I could see them in the hallway. She was leaning on him, her hair disheveled, cheeks flushed in a way I recognized from better days. Days when she came to our bed with that same glow. My stomach turned. He had his hand on her waist, fingers pressed intimately into her hip. They whispered to each other. Her lips grazed his ear. They kissed again, longer this time, and for a moment I saw her hand slide under his shirt, the way her fingertips moved across his spine. My vision blurred, tears or adrenaline, or something else, and my fists clenched so tight my nails bit into my palms. It was more than just sex. It was closeness, and ease and comfort I once believed was mine alone. I felt my skin burn hot. That was the final blow to the illusions I'd been desperately holding on to. I did nothing. I just memorized the details until my mind felt scorched. Then I drove off into the night, parked in some random lot, and stared at the darkness until my knuckles ached for release. That's when I hammered my fist into the concrete wall. And that's why I found myself, hours later, limping back home. I pulled into our driveway, quietly unlocked the front door. A single lamp in the living room was still on. She must have left it for me as a courtesy. Nothing else stirred. I walked past the couch, past the photos on the mantel. Sarah and I on our wedding day, smiling as if that moment would last forever. Then a picture of us with our son at the park, him perched on my shoulders, giggling like life was an endless game. It physically hurt to look at those images. I considered smashing the frame to the floor, but some rational voice inside told me, asterisk, not yet. This is just the first step of your calculation. Asterisk, asterisk, step 1 to kill trust. Catch the lie. Confirm it. Let it suffocate any lingering hope. Asterisk, I went upstairs to check on my son. He was curled under a blanket, breathing softly. I ran my hand over his hair, feeling protective and heartbroken at the same time. His little face, so peaceful. I couldn't imagine ripping his world apart by hurling ugly accusations at his mother right there and then. So I quietly closed the door, went to my own bedroom, and found it empty. She hadn't come home yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the faint hum of the house. Every muscle in my body felt wired, like I was ready for a fight that never came. My phone buzzed, just a single text from Sarah. Asterisk, sorry, project ran late. Don't wait up. Asterisk. And that was it. I lay down on the comforter, stared at the ceiling fan, and tried not to let my thoughts tear me to pieces. Eventually, I drifted into a kind of half-sleep. Sometime near dawn, she slipped into bed. I felt the mattress dip. She smelled of perfume and faint sweat, the same mix I had watched in that building's hallway. My jaw tightened. I stayed quiet, eyes closed, steadying my breath. She tried to settle in without waking me, but the tension crackled between us. My heart pounded. I wanted to speak, to confront her. I just couldn't. I didn't trust my voice not to break. All I felt was raw betrayal and that odd calm that follows devastation. So I waited. Asterisk, step 2. Let the silent knowledge fester until it becomes impossible to hide. Asterisk. The next day, I drove our son to his kindergarten. For family week. It's a tradition they do every year. Parents come in, share little stories, see their children's drawings, watch them interact with friends. I tried to be cheerful, or at least to fake it, for my kid's sake. In the back of my mind, I still heard the echoes of last night. The little moans, the casual caress of another man's hand on my wife's waist. Sarah arrived late, looking flustered, but no one seemed to notice. My son's eyes lit up when he saw me, and he ran over, hugging my legs. He showed me a bright, scribbled painting, a house with 3 figures in it. I recognized one with broad shoulders, the other with hair that looked suspiciously like Sarah's. The child had drawn a smaller version of himself in the middle. I felt a weird sense of relief, until I noticed a second, taller figure standing outside the house, arms outstretched. "Who's that?" I asked softly, trying to keep my voice steady. That's Mommy's friend," he said, blinking. And just like that, the painting stuck in my mind as a snapshot of our new twisted family dynamic. A father and mother inside the home, and a stranger outside, wanting in. We moved on, sitting on the small chairs arranged by the teachers. I made conversation with other parents, forced laughter. Then it happened. A boy from across the room pointed at Sarah and asked my son, "Is that your mom?" My boy nodded proudly, and then without missing a beat, he said, "That's my real dad," clicking a thumb at me. "And that's my second one," pointing toward Anthony, who had just walked in behind Sarah. My entire body clenched. It was as if the air turned to ice. Sarah's face paled, and a couple of parents arched their eyebrows in confusion. Anthony, for whatever reason, had shown up, maybe out of arrogance, or maybe Sarah had invited him. I still don't know. I felt my throat tighten with fury and humiliation. Silence stretched. The teacher coughed, tried to lighten the mood by asking the kids to settle down. I wanted to stand up and break something, but instead, I shut down inside. My muscles stiffened, and all I felt was a cold spike that drove itself through my heart, shattering the last illusions of normalcy. Anthony had the nerve to stand there, half smiling, as if he belonged. Sarah opened her mouth, closed it again, and fidgeted with her hair. I couldn't bring myself to speak. Asteriski killed trust in that moment. That was step 3, public humiliation, letting the lie surface in front of everyone. Somehow, I lasted the rest of the event in a daze. Our son continued to chatter, unaware of the bomb he'd dropped. Sarah avoided my gaze, and Anthony left shortly after, with barely a nod in my direction. By the time it was over, I felt hollow. I realized I was breathing like a man who'd just survived a car crash. We drove home in silence. Sarah reached for my hand on the gearshift, but I pulled away. She stared at the road. Her eyes were full of tears, yet she said nothing. I parked in our driveway, went inside, and told her, "Put him to bed." She whispered, "Michael," but I didn't answer. I headed up to my study, locked the door, and grabbed a piece of paper. This time, I would be the one who left something unsaid, at least to her face. I scrawled a letter, careful and deliberate, each word a final judgment. I apologized for any shortcomings she once believed I had. I told her I forgave her for everything she'd done, but that I could not love her anymore. My pen pressed into the paper so hard my hand cramped. Then I signed it. I still had the old habit of sealing important documents with a personal wax stamp, a tiny indulgence from my marketing days. It felt archaic, but final. I set the letter aside, reached into a box in the corner, and pulled out our wedding invitations, left over from all those years ago. I remember how carefully we'd chosen the font, the color scheme, the little swirl of gold leaf on the edges. Now, in the fireplace, they curled and blackened under the flames. I watched as they turned to ash, and I thought about how my love was burning too. I didn't hate her. No, that's not the word. Hate is too easy, too simple. I just felt something colder, like asterisk beyond hate, asterisk a deep emptiness that told me we were done. When she finally knocked on the door, I let her in. She saw the ashes, recognized the half-burned remnants of our invitations. Her eyes went wide. I stood there, silent, holding the sealed envelope in one hand. "Michael, what are you?" I handed her the letter. "I'd appreciate it if you read this in private," I said, voice trembling with suppressed rage and sorrow. She took it, but didn't open it yet. We need to talk. Please. About what? I asked quietly, though my tone had a razor edge. Her eyes filled with tears. It was never supposed to go this far. I didn't mean to fall in love with him. I laughed, a short, bitter bark, or just to sleep with him behind my back. She shook her head. It's complicated. I folded my arms, feeling my chest tighten again. Enlighten me. Are you in love with him? Was I just a placeholder? Her mouth opened and closed. It's not that simple. I love you. I'm just... She trailed off, tears glistening. And you thought it'd be a good idea to bring him to our son's school. My voice rose, bouncing off the walls. What were you thinking? Were you proud to parade him in front of me? She buried her face in her hands. He just wanted to see me. He said it was an innocent visit. I never thought our son would. She choked on the words. Something inside me snapped. I lunged forward, not to hurt her, but to drive my fist into the wall behind her. My knuckles collided with the plaster, leaving a dent. She flinched, eyes wide in terror. For a heartbeat, I wanted her to see how close I was to losing the last thread of control. My hand throbbed again, but I didn't care. Get out, I said softly. She stared at me, tears on her cheeks. Michael, please. Just leave this room. I don't want to say something I'll regret. Go to bed, or wherever the hell you feel like. Read that letter. But leave me alone. She hesitated, then turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her. I stayed there, hand pressed to the cracked wall, my breath coming in uneven bursts. The silence after a storm. The next day, I woke up early, numb. She was in the kitchen, hair unbrushed, eyes puffy. I didn't speak. Our son came bounding down the stairs, oblivious. I ruffled his hair, plastering on a smile. Inside, I felt as if I'd already died. Everything I did, from pouring cereal to sipping coffee, felt like I was performing the motions of a ghost. She tried to catch my gaze. I avoided it. She parted her lips, then closed them. My letter sat on the kitchen counter, seal broken, pages flattened. At some point during the night, she had written something on the back in shaky pen, her own attempt at a reply. I didn't touch it. Let her have her last words. I was too hollow to care. I dropped our son at kindergarten, the scene from the previous day haunting me. The teacher smiled politely, probably too polite, because she suspected something was off, but had no place to ask. My son hugged me goodbye. I lingered for a second outside the classroom door, wanting to hold him a moment longer. He was, after all, the one pure thing in this entire nightmare. Then I drove to work. My colleagues noticed I was quieter than usual. I managed to bury myself in reports, spreadsheets, marketing strategies, anything to keep my mind from the echoing pain. But inevitably, lunchtime arrived, and I found myself in a corner booth at a nearby cafe, stirring black coffee. That's when I saw Anthony walk in. Of all the places in this city, this asterisk was the cafe he chose. Or maybe it wasn't a coincidence. Maybe he knew I went there. Either way, he froze when our eyes met. An awkward half-smile ghosted across his face. He approached my table, though every muscle in me tensed in protest. Michael, mind if I sit? He asked quietly. The arrogance I remembered from him wasn't entirely gone, but he seemed uneasy. I glared, but my body felt too drained to cause a scene in public. Fine, I muttered. He sat, placed his coffee down, and cleared his throat. Look, He ran a hand over the short stubble on his chin. I never meant for it to blow up like this. I couldn't help a sarcastic laugh. You show up in my son's classroom, and you never meant for it to blow up. He winced. That was a mistake. Sarah was feeling the lone hand. My fist clenched under the table. And you swooped in to fix that. I leaned forward, voice low and tense. Let me guess, you thought I wasn't giving her what she needed, that I was some incompetent husband. So you offered a shoulder, then a bed. Anthony's gaze dropped to the table. I won't lie. We connected. She talked about frustrations at home, feeling stifled, like you didn't see her passion for design anymore. I'm not blaming you, he added quickly, seeing my eyes narrow. I know I'm not innocent. I saw an opening, and I took it. I'm sorry. Sorry, I echoed, each syllable dripping with bitterness. You're sorry. My coffee had grown cold. I grabbed the cup, intending to take a sip, but my hand shook, and I set it down again. Well, that fixes everything, doesn't it? He let out a slow breath. She's not a fling to me. There are real feelings here. I stared at him, momentarily speechless. Feelings. Fantastic. Did you and Sarah ever consider the damage you'd do to our son? Did either of you think for 1 second about the consequences? Anthony's jaw tensed. I care about her. I care about the boy, too. I know you won't believe me, but I never wanted to replace you. He stopped, raking a hand over his face. I felt a wave of raw fury, but also a dull ache. He was telling me about caring for my son. I clenched my teeth. You think you're better for them than I am. No, he said, voice quiet. I think I can give Sarah something she lost. For a second, I wanted to lunge across the table and smash his face into the sugar bowl. Instead, I rose abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. Stay away from my family, I said, my voice trembling with contained wrath. Next time, we won't be talking. I turned and left him there, fighting the urge to glance back. Adrenaline pounded in my veins. I walked out onto the street, gulping the chilly air, feeling like my chest might explode. When I got home that evening, I found Sarah and our son quietly making dinner. She looked up as I walked in, something like relief on her face. She sent our son upstairs to fetch an extra set of napkins, an obvious excuse to talk to me alone. Michael, she began gently, wiping her hands on a towel. We can't keep living like this. We need to figure out. I cut her off. You made your choice. Now you can live with it. She bit her lip, tears threatening. There's more to it than that. I'm still here, aren't I? Physically, I said, slinging my jacket over a chair. But the rest of you left a while ago. She inhaled sharply, but I brushed past her to wash my hands. She followed me, placing a trembling hand on my shoulder. Please, just talk to me. I felt something twist in my gut. The love I used to feel for her wasn't dead. It was battered and bleeding, but still flickering. I hated that I still cared, hated that she could touch me with those fingers and remind me of better times. What do you want me to say, Sarah? I whispered. That I still love you. That I can't stop picturing you with **, moaning into his ear, your nails clawing his back. My breath caught. I saw you, remember? Her face turned ashen. You followed me. I nodded slowly, letting the weight of that truth sink in. He opened the door. You practically melted into him. I watched enough to know exactly how little my ring on your finger means to you now. She started crying, pressing her hands to her mouth. Her tears only deepened the gnawing emptiness inside me, because I wanted to comfort her in some twisted reflex, but I couldn't. I was too far gone. I stepped away, turned off the faucet. I'm not living in a house with 3 people in this marriage, I said, voice hollow. If you want him, go. If you want me. I paused, realizing how impossible it sounded, then cut it off with him. Completely, publicly, with no illusions. But I'm not sure I can forget what you did. My voice dropped to a strained whisper. I'm not sure I can ever touch you again without picturing **. She sobbed once more, then squared her shoulders. I love you, Michael, she insisted, as if that by itself was enough. I made a mistake. You made more than a mistake, I barked, anger flaring again. You made a choice. Repeatedly. Don't reduce it to a slip-up. She bowed her head, tears running down her cheeks. Our son's footsteps clattered on the stairs. We both froze, wiping our eyes, forcing composed masks. The heartbreak thickened the air. A family meal at the same table, with a chasm between us. Days bowled into nights. I barely slept. I kept seeing them together, kept hearing that moan in my head. The next big blow came during the official Family Week event, a small evening gathering the kids had at the kindergarten. I almost skipped it, but I didn't want my son to suffer the embarrassment of his father's absence. Sarah suggested we all go together. Fine, I thought. I can manage one more facade of normalcy. We arrived to find a miniature carnival set up in the schoolyard. Teachers manned little booths. Kids ran around squealing with delight. Parents chatted in clusters. For a moment, I felt a pang of nostalgia for simpler times. My boy grabbed my hand and dragged me toward the face-painting station. Sarah tried to smile, but I saw the anxiety in her eyes. Everything was going smoothly until I spotted Anthony weaving through the crowd, scanning faces. My gut tightened. Did she invite him again, or had he decided to show up on his own? Either way, I marched straight for him, intercepting him near a row of tables covered in arts and crafts supplies. "What the hell are you doing here?" I hissed. He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Easy. I wanted to make sure Sarah's okay." I stared daggers at him, muscles tense to explode. "This is not your place. You're crossing a line." He sighed. "It's not that simple," she told me. "Wait, she told you asterisk what asterisk?" I snapped, voice rising. "Michael, please." Sarah's voice cut in from behind me. I whirled around, finding her close by, eyes pleading. "I asked him not to come," she said softly. "I didn't know he would show up anyway." Anthony grimaced. I thought, maybe we could talk, all of us. Clear the air. I didn't want to sneak around anymore. My face grew hot. "How noble of you," I spat. "You think we'll all sit down, have a friendly chat about how you're screwing my wife?" Sarah grabbed my arm. "Michael, please, calm down. We're in public. The kids." "Don't you dare tell me to calm down," I muttered, voice dangerously low. "My son is here. Our son, Sarah. And this man is not part of his family." Anthony looked around at the other parents glancing in our direction. He let out a slow breath. "I'm sorry. I'll go." He turned on his heel and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there, heart thumping, fists clenched. Sarah's hand remained on my sleeve. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't want this." I shook her off. "You keep saying that, but you still let him linger. If you meant any of your apologies, you would have cut him out entirely." She opened her mouth to speak, but I walked away, storming toward the other side of the yard. My son was painting a paper plate mask with bright colors. I forced a smile and crouched beside him, ignoring the world. The only thing that mattered at that moment was not letting him see the cracks in our family. 2 nights later, the storm finally broke at home. It started quietly. Sarah sat at the dining table, sifting through leftover design sketches. I was on the sofa, staring at the TV but not really watching. The hush between us had become suffocating, a painful routine. At some point, she got up, turned the TV off, and faced me. "We can't keep living like strangers," she said. I stared at the black screen, the reflection of both of us, faintly visible. "I don't see any other way." She walked in front of me, arms folded over her chest. "Are we getting a divorce?" The word hit me like a punch. I tried to speak but realized my throat felt constricted. "That's up to you," I managed. "If you can't end it with him." She sank down on the coffee table, forcing me to look at her. "I ended it," she said firmly. "Yesterday, I told him never to contact me again. That we were finished." I swallowed. Am I supposed to believe that? She flinched. "I'm telling the truth. I blocked his number, wrote him an email explaining that I can't keep hurting my family like this." "Why'd you do it now?" I asked, eyes narrowing. "Because it's convenient. Because I realized it's not worth losing you, she whispered, voice quavering. He was. Excitement, a fantasy. But you're my husband, the father of our boy. I know I've destroyed your trust, but part of me hopes we can try to rebuild. I let out a slow, shaky breath. I watched you in his arms, I muttered. That's not something I can unsee. Tears welled up in her eyes. I know. I'm sorry. Her hand drifted toward mine, hovered, then pulled back. Michael, I swear, I won't see him again. I want to fix this. Tell me what to do. A bitter laugh escaped my throat. I can't tell you how to fix something you blew to pieces, but even as I said it, I felt the old love stirring painfully inside, reminding me how many nights we'd fallen asleep in each other's arms, how many inside jokes we shared, how many memories of her laughter brightened my darkest days. She pressed her palms together, lips trembling. We could try counseling. We could talk to a pastor or a therapist, or we could do anything. But I need you. I can't do this alone. I closed my eyes. My voice came out low, as if dredged from a deep pit. I want to believe you. God help me. I do. But I'm so angry, so betrayed. Part of me wants to watch you suffer for what you did. The admission tasted foul in my mouth. And yet, I still love you. And that might be the cruelest punishment of all. She sobbed once, tears slipping freely. Then she moved forward, slowly placed her arms around my shoulders. I stiffened. Her body trembled against mine, and I couldn't deny the familiarity of her warmth. For a moment, we were like two wounded animals huddling together, unsure if we'd lash out or cling desperately. I didn't return her embrace, not fully. But I let her hold me. My heart hammered with conflicting desires, to push her away, to cling to her, to scream, to bury my face in her hair and pretend none of this happened. In the end, all I did was sit there, silent, letting her tears soak my shirt. We slept in separate rooms that night, but for the first time in a while, neither of us fled the house. In the morning, she was already up, making breakfast. The smell of bacon and eggs filled the kitchen, as if she were trying to recall happier Sunday mornings. My son squealed with delight at the sight of a full spread. I stood in the doorway, observing the scene. She glanced at me, tentative hope in her eyes. "Coffee's ready," she said quietly. I nodded, stepping forward to pour myself a cup. There was a soft tension, but not as acidic as before. I felt oddly calm, as if I'd turned a page. Maybe her vow to cut off Anthony was genuine. Maybe it was the final wave in this storm. But my guard was high. My cynicism told me that trust wouldn't magically reappear with a plate of eggs. Still, I tried. For our son's sake, if nothing else. I sipped coffee, feigned a little conversation about work. She responded softly. Our boy ate his breakfast happily, oblivious to the tightrope we were walking. After we finished, Sarah pulled me aside. "I'm sorry about everything," she whispered, as if repeating the words was the only way she could keep breathing. "I'll show you I mean it. I'll be here when you're ready to talk more." Part of me wanted to lash out, to say, talk about what? How you let another man claim my place in your bed. But all I managed was a curt nod. And then I left to run errands, to get out of the house before my thoughts strangled me. Days passed. She maintained her distance from Anthony. I checked her phone records to confirm there were no calls from him. It felt invasive, but I had no regrets. She never complained about the intrusion, likely understanding this was the price of her betrayal. My anger still boiled beneath the surface, but a quiet acceptance began to settle. This is our life now. Either we rebuild from the rubble, or we burn the entire thing to the ground. At night, I sat in my study, letter after letter in front of me. One was my initial farewell note, the other was a revised version I'd started writing. I was torn between leaving for good or allowing the possibility of reconciliation. Neither path felt like a victory. I felt imprisoned by the weight of her betrayal, by the memory of my own love. Then came the final trigger. A single text popped up on her phone while it lay on the kitchen counter. She was in the other room. I heard the buzz, glanced at the screen, and saw Anthony's name. My heart lurched. He'd sent a short message. Asterisk, I miss you. Please talk to me. Asterisk, I grabbed the phone, marched into the living room, and practically threw it in her lap. Care to explain? She stared at the text, her face twisting in dread. I swear, I didn't ask for this, she whispered. He's ignoring my request to stop contacting me. Let me block him again. I wanted to believe her, but fury coiled inside me once more. Don't you see how hopeless this is? The moment you turned to him, you tore us apart. He's not letting go because he thinks there's still a chance. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Then I'll show him there isn't. Watch me. She tapped the screen, blocked his number, deleted the conversation. See? Her eyes pleaded for me to believe her. I'm done with him. My chest heaved. We stared at each other, the silence as thick as mud. Finally, I tore my gaze away, heading upstairs without another word. Our son was reading in his room. I kissed him goodnight. He asked, "Dad, are you sad?" And I froze. Out of the mouths of children, the pure truth emerges so easily. I'm just tired, buddy, I said, stroking his hair. But I love you. Never forget that. He smiled sleepily. I love you too, Dad. That night, I wrote one last note. This time, I addressed it to both Sarah and myself, in a sense, spilling out the swirl of heartbreak and leftover devotion. I wrote that I could not hate her, that I might never fully trust her again, but I still felt the impossible pull of love. Perhaps that made me weak or foolish, but it was real. I folded the paper, sealed it with wax, and labeled it simply, asterisk us asterisk. Then I gathered my courage and went to our bedroom. She was lying on the far side of the mattress, eyes open, lost in thought. Without speaking, I slipped under the covers. The tension hung there, a barrier we both felt. She turned her head slightly, searching my face. I studied her features, recalling the time when I proposed. She had that same hopeful shine in her eyes then, minus the tears. Slowly, I brushed my fingertips against her cheek. She trembled. There was a moment of raw emotion, neither purely desire nor purely forgiveness. We were two people who had shared a life, a child, a dream, and somehow let it all unravel. Her tears welled up. "Michael," she whispered, voice shaky, "I don't deserve another chance." "Probably not," I murmured. "But maybe I deserve to figure out if we can rebuild something better." She exhaled a ragged breath and reached for my hand, pressing it to her heart. Under my palm, her pulse raced. We lay there, the raw intimacy of our breathing filling the silence. Slowly, tentatively, she leaned closer. Our lips touched, and it felt like a mixture of sorrow and longing. I couldn't shut off the images of her with Anthony, but I clung to the memory of who we used to be. We kissed, not with joy, but with an aching sense of desperation, like trying to recapture a moment that might be gone forever. Her body molded against mine, and for an instant, I felt the warmth that once bound us together. But guilt, pain, and betrayal lingered in the shadows. Even so, we held each other until dawn's light crept through the curtains, neither of us truly sleeping. Morning found me empty again. The aftertaste of that shared night hovered between us, uncertain. She got up to fix breakfast for our son. I stayed in bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind echoing with a single question. Is this enough to keep going? The day passed in a haze of normalcy. Chores, errands, making small talk with neighbors. The faint tension remained, but there was no explosion, no meltdown. I started to wonder if we'd slipped into a truce, precarious but tangible. A few days later, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, I found myself rummaging through old boxes in the garage. I was searching for a document from work, but I stumbled upon a dusty photo album. Pictures of me and Sarah in college, our early years of dating, the first time we traveled together. My heart twisted at the sight. The couple in those photos looked so carefree, so in love. She found me there, flipping pages, and stood quietly. I looked up, tears stinging my eyes. She knelt beside me, resting a hand on my shoulder. We said nothing for a while, just let the pictures remind us of what once was, and what might be gone forever. Finally, she spoke, voice fragile. We had some good times, didn't we? I swallowed the lump in my throat. Yeah, we did. We sat on the concrete floor, flipping through memories. Eventually, she gathered a shaky breath. Do you want to try counseling? I've looked up a few therapists who specialize in infidelity recovery. I sighed. I don't know, I admitted, but I'm willing to see if it can help. A pause. For our son's sake, if nothing else. She nodded, tears brimming. Thank you. In the weeks that followed, we kept the lines of communication open, tense, painful, but open. We saw a counselor a few times. I laid out my anger, my resentment, my heartbreak, while Sarah tried to express her guilt, her loneliness, her reasons. Some sessions ended with me storming out. Others ended with her sobbing. But slowly, we learned to speak without screaming. I wasn't sure if we'd survive as a couple, but at least we weren't ignoring the wound. Anthony tried to reach out again, apparently from a new number, sending cryptic emails or texts. Sarah, I know you feel this too. Don't shut me out. She showed me each message, then deleted or blocked him. I watched her do it, and although part of me still seethed with jealousy, I also felt a tiny spark of relief that she was choosing to face me with honesty, not secrets. Our son sensed the tension but seemed calmer now that both parents remained in the house. The day he crawled onto my lap and whispered, I love you, Dad, I felt a wave of fierce protection. I swore to myself that no matter what happened between Sarah and me, I would be there for him, unconditionally. And then came the day I realized I had a choice. Either cling to bitterness or try, truly try, to accept that Sarah was imperfect, that her betrayal was real, but that I could still love her if she put in the work to mend it. Standing in the living room, I looked at the faint dent in the wall where my fist had struck weeks earlier. Sarah walked in, following my gaze. Should we fix that? She asked quietly. I thought about it. My knuckles still remembered the impact, that sharp jolt of rage. The reminder of what she'd done. Maybe, I said, turning to her. But not yet. She nodded, understanding flickering in her eyes. Some scars need to remain visible until you heal inside. That evening, I made dinner for the three of us. Sarah helped set the table, and our son laughed and played with silverware, building a little tower. The tension that once crushed me felt a bit lighter. Not gone, but no longer suffocating. When I tucked our son into bed, he yawned and grabbed my hand. Dad, I'm glad you and Mom aren't fighting so much. My throat tightened. Me too, buddy. Me too. Time moved forward. We continued counseling, continued awkward attempts at closeness. Some days were better, some days were worse. The memory of her infidelity never fully vanished, but the raw edges grew slightly duller. She apologized 1,000 times, in words, in actions, in the way she tried to be transparent about her phone, her schedule. And I tried not to let every flash of doubt consume me. One night, I took out the letter I'd written. The one sealed with wax, labeled *us. I'd never shown it to her. It was my raw, unfiltered admission that I did still love her, even after everything, and that I wasn't sure how to live with that paradox. We sat together on the couch. She was painting her nails, trying to look calm, but I sensed her nervous energy. I handed her the envelope. Read this if you want. I wrote it when I was in the middle of my worst anger, but also my worst longing for you. She set the polish aside, wiped her hands, and opened it. As she read, silent tears streamed down her cheeks. When she finished, she pressed the letter to her chest. Michael, I don't deserve this forgiveness, she whispered. I'm scared I'll fail you again. I sighed, leaning my head back on the couch. I'm scared too, I admitted. Some nights, I still dream of you and him, and I wake up boiling with rage. But I can't deny this. I tapped my chest. I still love you in some twisted way. She set the letter down carefully. I love you too. I wish I could turn back time. We sat in that quiet, shared regret. Eventually, I reached over and took her hand. We stayed like that, wordless, letting the tension ebb. For the first time since the affair, I felt a flicker of genuine hope, fragile but real. Months later, we found a new routine. We still argued sometimes. Trust doesn't rebuild overnight. There were days I'd see a random text notification on her phone and break into a cold sweat, or days she'd sense my distance and cry, believing I'd never see her as more than a betrayer. But we pressed forward. In therapy, she admitted to feeling neglected, unloved, overshadowed by my work. I admitted I'd grown complacent, ignoring her needs because I assumed our marriage was unshakable. None of it excused what she did, but at least we were talking honestly. At one session, the counselor asked if we could express the main reason we'd stay together. My heart pounded as I thought of all the reasons I might walk away. Yet I found myself saying, because beneath the pain, I still feel that she's part of me. And I want to see if there's a future where I can look at her without seeing him. Sarah cried softly, gripping my hand. I'm so sorry, she said again, voice trembling. But I'm staying because I believe we can be stronger. I love our son. And I do love you, Michael, more than I ever loved him. He was a stupid, reckless escape. You're home. I swallowed a lump in my throat, a swirl of anger and tenderness warring inside me. Home. That word used to mean safety. We'd have to redefine it now, piece by piece. At last, a time came when we felt stable enough to do something symbolic. Renew our vows in private, just the two of us, no lavish ceremony. I bought a simple new ring, smaller than the wedding band she once wore, but carefully chosen. I wasn't naive. This wasn't a cure-all. But it was my way of saying I was willing to rebuild, if she truly stood beside me. We went to a small chapel outside the city, the same place I used to go sometimes to clear my mind. The minister there was an old friend of my parents', a kind man who listened without judgment. We stood at the altar, no witnesses, just the quiet hush of that sacred space. I slipped the new ring onto her finger, my heart pounding. I don't promise to forget, I said, voice shaking, but I promise to keep trying. I promise to be honest about my hurt, and to let you be honest about your needs. Tears glistened in Sarah's eyes. She slid my old ring back onto my hand, as if reclaiming a place she'd nearly abandoned. I promise to respect you, to love you with every ounce of me. I promise never to betray that trust again, and to face our problems instead of running. We both exhaled, a soft tremor of emotion in the silence. The minister nodded, offered a gentle blessing, and then we left. Outside, the sky was overcast, but a faint beam of sunlight broke through. I felt something lift in my chest, not the full weight of heartbreak, but a sense that maybe we were stepping into a new chapter, one still scared, but ours to shape. Back home, I walked into our living room, noticing the photos on the mantel. I picked up the wedding picture that once caused me such anguish. My thumb rubbed over the smiling faces. I still hurt for what we'd lost, but also recognized that the story wasn't over. Sarah came up behind me, slid her arms around my waist. It's not perfect, she murmured. No, I agreed, setting the photo down. But I guess we can't aim for perfect. Just honest. She pressed her cheek against my back, and I placed a hand over hers. The boy was upstairs, likely playing with his new video game. For a moment, the house was quiet, just our breath in unison. My mind drifted back to that day in the kindergarten, my son calling Anthony his second father, that piercing humiliation. A wave of sorrow and anger flickered through me. But then I pictured the new ring on Sarah's finger, the tears in her eyes at the chapel, and I felt a different emotion. Determination. I refused to let that man define the rest of my marriage. Taking a deep breath, I turned in her arms and looked into her eyes. She studied my face, bracing for whatever I might say. "I want to move forward," I told her, voice steady. "I won't lie. Sometimes I'll remember. And it'll hurt like hell. But maybe that's okay." She nodded, eyes wet. "It's okay. We'll face it together." And in that moment, I believed her. Despite everything, I believed that if we were both willing to do the work, we could salvage something real from the wreckage. There is no neat, tidy conclusion to betrayal. I don't wake up each morning bursting with joy. Some days, the memory of her in Anthony's arms rips through me like a fresh wound. Some days, I wonder if I can keep the rage at bay. But each day, we choose whether to stand or to fall. We never replace the dent in the living room wall. At least not yet. It remains a reminder of the night I unleashed my fury when the lies became undeniable. A scar in the plaster, just like the scar in our marriage. But maybe that's how real healing begins, not by denying the cracks, but by acknowledging them, living with them, and moving forward anyway. Sarah tries to earn back my trust, day by day. I watch her efforts, and though I'm tempted to stay guarded forever, I allow little pieces of hope to filter in. Our son smiles more. He doesn't talk about a second father anymore. He only knows that we're both here for him, that we love him in our flawed human way. Sometimes I still feel that emptiness, that sense of having died the night I saw them together. But maybe that part of me had to die, so something else could emerge. I can't say I'm grateful for any of it. Betrayal leaves scars no amount of tears or time can fully erase. Yet, as I stand here, pen in hand, writing this final piece of our story, I sense the possibility of rebirth, even in the ashes. I haven't found the old naive trust I once had, and I probably never will. But I've realized that love can persist in the midst of ruin. Sometimes we choose to love because we see a glimmer of redemption, even in the darkest corridors of pain. In the end, I walked away from my desire to tear everything down, choosing instead a path of cautious forgiveness. Or maybe it's just acceptance. As I look at Sarah from across the room, she meets my gaze. There's regret in her eyes, but also a softness that reminds me of who she was long ago. And I realize I still love her, even after everything. Maybe that's what keeps us going. We let go of the illusions and hold on to the raw truth, that we're broken people trying to heal together. So here I am, at the end of one chapter and the uncertain start of another. Do I feel fear? Yes. Do I feel loss? Absolutely. But I also feel something else stirring in my chest, a quiet resolve not to let betrayal define the rest of my life. My final words to her, scribbled on a slip of paper and tucked under her pillow, echo the strange contradiction I've come to accept. Asterisk with love. Forever. Goodbye. Asterisk goodbye to the man I was before, the one who believed in an unbreakable marriage. Hello to the man who understands that sometimes you have to punch a wall, burn the old invitations, and walk through the fire to discover if there's any hope left when the smoke clears. I don't know what the future holds, but for now, I'm still here. She's still here. And that quiet decision, however precarious, might be the bravest act of love I've ever known.